Studies Section 2, Principles of Human Development and Growth. Introduction. Expressions such as "don't be childish" or "at your age" clearly show what is normal and expected behavior for one age level and which may not be typical of another. The needs, desires, and aspirations of an individual undergo continuous modification. Beliefs, opinions, attitudes, emotional responses, intellectual abilities, all the dimensions of personality always change throughout man's lifespan. In order that man may know and understand himself and all things about him better, developmental psychology seeks to trace the sequential changes in human personality. In this study, you will study the basic principles of human development and growth. Furthermore, the major controversies in developmental psychology will be discussed. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study, you should be able to 1. Identify the basic principles of human growth. 2. Describe the various age-long controversies in human development. There is a set of principles that characterizes the pattern and process of development and growth. These principles or characteristics describe typical development as a predictable and orderly process. That is, you can predict how most children will develop and that they will develop at the same rate and at about the same time as other children. Although there are individual differences in children's personalities, activity levels, and timing of developmental milestones, such as ages and stages, the principle and characteristics of development are universal patterns. Research strategies in developmental psychology. An understanding of the principles of development helps you to plan appropriate activities as well as stimulating and enriching experiences for children. It also provides a basis for understanding how to encourage and support young children's learning. When development proceeds from the head downwards, this is called the cephalocaudal principle. This principle describes the direction of growth and development. According to this principle, the child gains control of the head first, then the arms, and then the legs. Infants develop control of the head and face movements within the first 2 months after birth. In the next few months, they are able to lift themselves up by using their arms. By 6 to 12 months of age, infants start to gain control of their legs and therefore may be able to crawl, stand, or walk. Coordination of arms always precedes coordination of legs. 2. Development proceeds from the center of the body outwards. This is the principle of proximodistal development that also describes the direction of development. This means that the spinal cord develops before outer parts of the body. The child's arms develop before the hands, and the hands and feet develop before the fingers and toes. The muscles of the fingers and toes used in fine motor dexterity are the last to develop in physical development. 3. Principle of sequential development. Development depends on maturation and learning. The biological changes occur in sequential order and give children new abilities. This means that children must be mature to a certain level before they can progress to new skills, readiness. For example, a 4-month-old cannot use language because the infant's brain is not mature enough to allow the child to talk. By 2 years old, the brain has developed further, and with help from others, the child will have the capacity to say and understand words. Also, a child can't write or draw until he has developed the motor control to hold a pencil or crayon. 4. Development proceeds from the simple concrete to the more complex. Children use their cognitive and language skills to reason and solve problems. For example, learning relationships between things, how things are similar, or classification is an important ability in cognitive development. The cognitive process of learning how an apple and orange are alike begins with the most simplistic or concrete thought of describing the two. As children develop further in cognitive skills, they are able to understand the higher and more complex relationship between objects and things. That is, they would understand that an apple and an orange exist in a class of fruits. The child cognitively is then capable of classification. 5. Growth and development as a continuous process. As a child develops, he or she adds to the skills already acquired, and the new skills become the basis for further achievement and mastery of skills. Most children follow a similar pattern. Also, one stage of development lays the foundation for the next stage of development. For example, in motor development, there is a predictable sequence of developments that occur before walking. The infant lifts and turns the head before he or she can turn over. Infants can move their limbs, arms, and legs before grasping an object. Mastery of climbing stairs involves increasing skills from holding on to walking alone. By the age of 4, most children can walk up and down stairs with alternating feet. As in maturation, in order for children to write or draw, they must have developed the manual hand control to hold a pencil and a crayon. 6. Growth and development proceed from the general to the specific. In motor development, the infant will be able to grasp an object with the whole hand before using only the thumb and forefinger. The infant's first motor movements are very generalized, undirected, and reflexive, waving arms or kicking before being able to reach or creep towards an object. Growth occurs from large muscle movements to more refined smaller muscle movements. 7. Principle of discontinuity of growth. The growth is accelerated and slowed down later. This means that development involves distinct and separate stages with different kinds of behavior occurring in each stage. This suggests that the development of certain abilities in each stage have a definite starting and ending point. However, there is no exact time at which ability suddenly appears or disappears. 8. Principle of individual differences. There are individual rates of growth and development. Each child is different, and the rate at which individual children grow is different. Although the patterns and sequences for growth and development are usually the same for all children, the rates at which individual children reach developmental stages will be different. Understanding this fact of individual differences in rates of development should cause us to be careful about using and relying on age and stage characteristics to describe or label children. There is a range of ages for any developmental task to take place. This dismisses the notion of the average child. Some children will walk at 10 months while others walk a few months older at 18 months of age. Some children are more active while others are more passive. This does not mean that the passive child will be less intelligent as an adult. There is no point in comparing one child's progress with or against that of another child. Major controversies in developmental psychology. There are major controversies in developmental psychology which are as follows. 1. Nature-nurture. A. How much of an individual's development is due to nature and how much to nurture? For instance, the development of twins are sometimes different. B. Typically, developmental psychologists are interested in looking at how these factors interact rather than trying to decide which is more important. 2. Continuity, discontinuity. A. Whether human development occurs gradually or occurs in a series of breakthroughs. B. The people who believe that development is a series of stages belong to the continuity camp, while the people who believe that a child would have a work through would be in the discontinuity camp. 3. Universality, particularity. A. Does everyone go through the same developmental processes, stages, aspects, or does development vary across people and cultures? B. Although people seem to develop abilities at approximately the same age, this view has been called too simplistic. C. Cultural differences as well as family differences may influence development. Development may be much more multifaceted. Study Section 2 Summary. In this study, you have learned that 1. There is a set of principles that characterizes the pattern and process of development and growth. 2. There are major controversies in developmental psychology. This is the end of Study Section 2. Thanks for listening.